Hello, I'm Dr. Joe Jorgensen, Libertarian Party candidate for President of the United States. We just heard President Trump label his presidency the Great American Comeback, based on all the promises he's kept. He must be counting on the American people having awfully short memories. President Trump promised to balance the budget. Instead, the deficit is over $1 trillion a year and increasing with no end in sight. The president promised to bring our troops home as recently as in last year's State of the Union speech. Instead, military spending has increased, we've taken on even more military commitments, and troops have been merely moved around, not brought home. President Trump has repeatedly promised to build a border wall and have Mexico pay for it. Instead, we're treated to YouTube videos of kids scaling sections of the wall in less than a minute and a wall falling over after a storm. Oh, and Mexico isn't paying for it, you are. Broken promise after broken promise. Presidents and presidential candidates are masters of telling the American people what they want to hear, then ignoring their promises and doing what benefits themselves, their party, and special interest groups instead. Republican, Democrat, it doesn't matter. They don't care about the truth. President Obama promised that if we liked our doctor and we liked our health insurance, we could keep them. Tens of millions of Americans learned the hard way that the president lied to them. President Bush lied us into the Iraq War. And President Clinton told us the biggest whopper of them all, that the era of big government was over. Yeah, right. President Trump promised to improve access to health care and make it more affordable. However, the truth is that as long as insurance companies or government bureaucrats have final approval over your health care, spending on health care will continue to rise. The plans offered by Trump's Democratic opponents are even worse, threatening a complete government takeover of health care in order to provide better care to more people for less money. When was the last time that any government program worked as promised and led to less spending? Never. As my 1996 running mate Harry Brown was fond of saying, government doesn't work. In fact, after watching the vote counting fiasco in Iowa, I'm surprised that any American would put something as important as their health care in the hands of politicians. It's time to break the never-ending cycle of broken political promises and elections based on lies. As a libertarian candidate for president, I offer a different vision for America, one based on individual choice, economic liberty, prosperity, and peace. As president, I will submit a budget to Congress that immediately cuts at least $1 trillion in federal spending, enough to completely eliminate the deficit without raising any taxes. In fact, my goal will be to cut even more spending, so that tax money can be returned to the people it rightly belongs to you and your fellow taxpayers. To accomplish this, I will veto any bill that would lead to deficit spending, plus veto any increase in the debt ceiling. I will instruct every member of my cabinet on how much needs to be cut in their department and insist that they provide a full accounting of where the remaining money is going and why. You wouldn't borrow massive amounts of money and stick your children and grandchildren with the bill, would you? Our nation shouldn't be doing this either. As president, I will put a stop to it. As a start, we can stop wasting your tax dollars and precious American lives in devastating and unwinnable foreign wars. As your president, I will immediately begin withdrawing our troops from Afghanistan, Africa, and the Middle East. And we will stop subsidizing the defense of our allies. Our military will defend America, not foreign lands and not foreign kings. My goal is to turn the United States into one giant Switzerland, armed and neutral, the way our founders envisioned. We will also honor every American's Second Amendment right to bear arms and defend themselves, their family, their community, and our nation. When it comes to health care, we know what decades of government intrusion has led to: exploding costs, unaffordable insurance premiums, and insurance companies and government limiting access to the medical care you need. Interestingly, in the few areas where insurance and government aren't involved, such as LASIK eye surgery and cosmetic surgery, costs have actually gone down while the quality of care has gone up. That can happen to all of medicine if we just get government out of the way and return medical decision-making to patients and their doctors. There is solid evidence that putting patients back in charge of their own healthcare dollars can reduce overall healthcare by 75% or more. That's a much better option than anything that President Trump or the Democrats have to offer. We can also save money and lives by ending the war on drugs and all other laws that criminalize voluntary choices by individuals. We must stop incarcerating people for crimes without a victim, people who have harmed no one other than perhaps themselves. Laws that are most heavily enforced against racial minorities and people living in poverty. This includes laws that prevent people from earning a living or starting a business. Laws often advanced by existing businesses and industries to limit competition. As president, I will pardon and free all nonviolent federal prisoners serving time for drug offenses, as well as other victimless crime laws, and allow them to go home to their families. I will work to repeal the failed and unjust war on drugs, as well as other victimless crimes. I will also encourage state and local officials to do the same. Based on the experience of other countries, this will make our streets safer by reducing gang warfare and dramatically reduce the number of drug overdose deaths. It will also lead to lower rates of drug use, especially the more addictive, dangerous drugs. And it will make it easier for people with drug problems to get help. Despite all his grandiose promises, President Trump is a friend and ally of big government. He is expanding the swamp, not draining it. More federal spending, more executive power, more laws, more crushing debt, more foreign wars. As a libertarian candidate for president, I offer a much different vision for America, a vision of liberty, prosperity, and peace. I will work to make government small, dramatically less federal spending, dramatically lower taxes, less executive power, fewer laws, paying down debt, ending foreign wars. If this is what you want, then I invite you to visit my website, joj2020.com, to find out more about my campaign. I'm Dr. Jo Jorgensen, Libertarian for President. Thank you.